Welcome to another episode of our Kultuurireflektor podcast. My name is Anna Ranczakowska. I'm having two wonderful guests today. Welcome! We have two, again, powerful women in our next episode, where we're going to talk about cross-cultural communication and diversity in our daily work, but focusing on arts management. And let's explore what does that mean for us. So today's guests, Dasha Karpilovich and Marge Sassi, both lecturing in EBS, both lecturing in our arts management program. We're going to dive into quite complex topic, but we'll try to keep it from the perspective of what our students are living through while studying with us, and what does it mean to the field when they go further, when we release them from this grinder of our program. Dasha and Marge actually, in our pre-conversation, gave me very good hints what to say commonly about my two guests. So what is common for them is Australia, Estonia, EBS I mentioned myself. I will add to that Dasha, lecturer in cross-cultural communication since 2018, with the background as marketing director in Baltics in Huawei. I pronounced it well, thank you. Dasha originally coming from Belarus, yes, landed in Estonia, living before in China and Australia. Marge gave me hints like she's on the mission to deliver knowledge. So not practicing, but practicing delivering the knowledge. Fan of Australian indigenous culture and forcing her kids to be into music, not being into music herself, right? Am I correct now?
Yes, that's true.
So I'm setting the settings now because I want to open the discussion, asking you, and I will start from Dasha. What does the term diversity mean for you, and how do you frame it in your daily work?
Okay, so I think that diversity is, from one side, it's a very complex issue. From another side, it's really simple. If I try to come up with some, exprompt, give it exprompt meaning, then it would be just a representation of representation of different people in a company, or in an organization. And by different, I mean that it's not only age, gender, and ethnicity, which is the most common what we are thinking about when we talk about diversity, but it's also their educational background, their appearance, their parental status, their religious views. So diversity is actually a very complex issue, but mostly when we talk about diversity, we are talking about gender and ethnic origins.
Marge.
Yes, I would make it rather short by saying that diversity is wealth or enrichment that provides us so much more colors into our lives. It would be extremely boring if we all would be, clones of each other. And I guess by meeting and working together with somebody who is really different from you, you kind of find your own identity as well. So we need, as much as possible, different people around us to know who we are. And I also believe that whatever team, in arts organization, in university, in society, when we are different, then we kind of improve our way of understanding and interpreting the world. So I would say that diversity, as we have in Estonia a slogan, there is a media campaign called Erinevus rikastab. So basically, it's about diversity enriching us. And I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But additionally to what Dasha said, Dasha mentioned cultural diversity. Perhaps this age and gender and religion as well make us different. Mm-hmm.
Marge, you are finishing your PhD now, where you're trying to also write about improving effectiveness of arts organization. How do you think does the diversity improve the effectiveness of arts organization in practice? You know, because it told me on the individual level, if I live in a diverse environment, that's enriching me as a person. What does that mean for the organization?
In order to be effective, cultural organization needs to play through different scenarios. Think about the consequences, think way in advance. And when we have this kind of a one paradigm, one focus, one perspective, I would say it's not a focus at all. Having one focus and not taking into account the variety of different views is definitely not what makes an organization strong. Therefore, I would say that when there is whatever meeting, whatever decision that needs to be implemented, or whatever brainstorming, when we gather around the table different kind of people, whatever makes them different, then this final outcome is so much better. And then we also kind of gather again and unite our forces to implement the plans together. Then again, we all bring something in. And for instance, I now take another jump aside from the cultural organizations to Estonian society, because unfortunately in Estonian society it's quite often said that Estonia is ours. We were here first, it's ours. And somehow this fact that there are so many different people who, and now I mean about nations, different nations, that have contributed to our success story and have enriched our history. So therefore, I guess seeing this diversity as something enriching makes sense. But on the other hand, it is perhaps in Estonian society not so widely accepted as it could or should be.
Dasha, from your practical experience in teaching in arts management program, what are the competences of arts managers that are enriching this experience, like that could feed the idea that we need to be more diverse? What kind of people do we need more in order for this concept of diversity to be broadly understood and accepted?
In this case, I wouldn't even narrow it down to arts managers only. I would take it broader, any kind of manager. If this manager wants to be successful in a cross-cultural environment, which is the reality of nowadays, whether you are in Estonia, I don't know, India or USA, we are all, the cultures are mixing, and more and more organizations are becoming multicultural one way or another. So I would highlight two competences, and one of them is probably the most important one is CQ. CQ is basically okay, so let's start with IQ. Everyone knows what IQ means, right? The level, basically, of intelligence. This is how we used to measure maybe the intelligence level of person. Some years ago, some decades ago, that was one of the main measurements, basically to understand if the person is smart or not. But this is all in the past. Then there is another abbreviation that appeared after IQ, which is EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. And this is something what everyone nowadays is talking about, that a really good leader, a really good manager must have high EQ, high emotional intelligence, be a very empathic people, understanding, and basically being able have capabilities of working with people. And sometimes this is even much more important than having really high IQ, right? Because maybe I will sound a little bit arrogant to someone, but I think that pretty much everything can be learned. I mean, any kind of profession, any kind of hard skill can be learned. it maybe some for some skills it will take you, I don't know, a few months, and something must be learned for years. But in the end, every hard skill can be acquired pretty easily. But when you talk about soft skills or emotional intelligence, this is something that you must cultivate in yourself every single day, and this is what will help you to adapt to ever-changing environment, and also to adapt to multicultural environment. So this is one point that I wanted to mention. Yeah, emotional intelligence. But then I started my talk with CQ. So CQ is next level after EQ. CQ is basically cultural intelligence, or the level of your cultural awareness. Being aware of cultural differences, just simply but being aware that such thing exists, that we are different, that there are cultural differences, that people from different cultures might think and behave in a completely different way. This already makes you stand out from other managers, from other leaders. But being aware makes you want to learn about it more. No one can say that they know everything about other cultures. But if you are aware that there might be cultural differences in your day-to-day work, you will, one way or another, try to explain the behavior of other people from other cultural background. You will try to find way how to approach them, how to work with them. And this is another point that will make you a really good manager, be it in arts or in any other organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, SQ, that's something that I learned today. How, you're sounding so, well, it's like a given, like it's so important. We are sitting here in 3 and we are, sure about that. Everyone understands that. But my experiences are quite opposite, right? My experiences are quite negative with understanding their importance, with actually implementing these ideas in institutions or even on a personal level. That's a really broader issue. Also, what the political situations happening in Poland, in Europe, and countries like Poland, Belarus, Hungary, and so on and so forth. But my question is that how can we, on the individual, but also institutional level, so not only as leaders, but as people, how can we raise the awareness of importance of this diversity? How to coin the issue that people are afraid into something that it's of a benefit? Marge?
Okay, thank you. I would say that hands-on approach would most probably work. Let it be rotation in an organization that you can actually try out the other jobs, see it from other angles. It can be from university perspective, more or less compulsory Erasmus Plus semester, where students are in a situation they have to step out from their comfort zone, they have to experience it. And I would also say that try to mix the teams as much as possible. What I see in Estonian business school happening quite often is that when there is a teamwork, students tend to build very homogeneous groups, which is safe. These people, they are your people. But on the other hand, does it actually prepare them for real life? I would say no. And therefore, this mediator's role, whether it be lecturer or manager in an organization, should most probably be in making this coming out from their comfort zone also safe and fun, so that people are ready to try it out, and as a result, perhaps have this positive experience that it was more challenging, but also more fun. Plus, the final outcome was finally so much more better. So it's worth investing more time and perhaps some more emotions into it when it finally turns out to be excellent result.
Dasha.
First of all, I fully agree with what Margaret has just said. To add on top, first of all, I think that there are there are mixed feelings when it comes to quotas, cultural quotas, but I still am on the side on thinking that this is a rather more positive thing that pushes organizations to accept change rather than a negative thing. So I would say that introducing cultural quotas or ethnic, some sort of quotas in large organizations, that might be a positive thing, because it just creates possibilities for people from different environments, from different ethnic regions to join this environment, but also it makes existing teams more diverse. It pushes people, as Margaret said, to come out from their comfort zone and to start sort of learning about other cultures. But I do know quite a few examples of several companies here locally in Estonia that sort of prefer to keep only same employees with same origins. So there is there are some companies that stick only to Russian employees or Russian speaking employees, and then on the other hand there are also companies that prefer Estonian employees only. And sometimes especially for large organizations, quotas can be a solution. And the second point what I wanted to mention is there's quite interesting concept that is not widely used, but I find it really very smart, and I also talk about it during my lectures. Such concept as cultural brokers. So they can be insiders or outsiders, and I'll explain what it is right now. So basically, if you have a team, or you have a team maybe where only two cultures prevail. Let's even take my example of my company where I've been working, Huawei. Yeah. So basically, for instance, we have Chinese because the company has Chinese origins and large amount of Chinese, and we have let's take a Lithuanian office where all the other employees are Lithuanians. So we have two cultures prevailing, and none of these cultures actually wants very much to accept the cultural differences, and there is a lot of tension because of that. And then there is a person like me who can be a cultural broker, so-called cultural broker. I've lived in China for several years. I speak the language, I know the culture very well, and I can be, but I'm not Lithuanian, but I'm also not Chinese. I'm an outsider from both cultures, but I know something about both cultures, and I can help those cultures to get to know each other more. As an outsider of these cultures, I can explain to one culture the behavior of another, and vice versa. So this is something. So such people as cultural brokers, they can help teams or help parts of the teams that if there's too big, for instance, there are two prevailing cultures, as in this case, such people can help them to just raise awareness of cultural differences, and this is something that would work in particular cases.
I want to be a devil's advocate in here. I'm going to throw something at you, and whoever feels like answering that, and please do. You mentioned quotas. So my devil's background is going to ask, why would we hire as a culture organization in Estonia someone who has no idea about our culture? Even if they speak language, let's say they came, they learn. Why would I take this person who has no idea about our roots, about our, ethnicity, like how we are as people?
Well, external.
What would be the incentive? Why would we do it?
I don't think there is any really tangible incentive, but external perspective should be always highly appreciated. And this person can actually tell what Estonia and Estonian culture is about. He or she can make us understand who we are and what we are. But also from the other angle, when arts organizations are sometimes challenged by selecting the right marketing approach, especially when it's international marketing. Then somebody who is not born in that particular cultural background, this person can be an excellent translator, also translator of newsworthiness, translator of the value, translating our own kind of slogans or meanings that we want to say, translate this into the understandable language for the foreigners, because we may fall into this trap that something is so self-evident to us, we even don't bother explaining this because, come on, everybody knows it. But they may know, but they may interpret and feel it differently. So I would say that, yes, tip of the day, in case not to a top management position, at least one foreigner should be in every arts organization. No doubt in that.
And we all force them to be in marketing department. Yes, great idea. I wanted to talk about this cultural brokers, a really interesting concept. I kind of translated already in my head to kind of sort of agency, like being an agent and advocate for someone, for something. So I'm thinking, Dasha, what kind of, again, I'm not going to ask you about competences, a personality traits of a person, to be outspoken to this extent that I'm actually going to advocate, I'm going to be agent of or broker or of some certain, culture or the diversity happening in my environment. So what do I need as a person?
That's a good question. I don't want to be, my first idea that came right away to my head was that most probably you want to be, such person should be a little bit more maybe outgoing person and a little bit more, let's say, extroverted, or at least really eager to communicate with others. Because if a person is really close to himself or herself, maybe this kind of task as advocating for other cultures is not very comfortable thing. But then I start to think that I always hate when people start dividing, something into extroverts and introverts, and saying that something is only for introverts and something is only for extroverts. So I'm resigning from this thought. I think that first of all, you should understand culture and all in all just love this topic. Yeah. So you should probably put it, or such person should have it as a sort of little mission, kind of to help others to understand each other. So you probably should have in yourself a wish to help others, for nothing. Yeah. So if you don't have this inner need, then most probably you won't be able to deal with such issues very much. But first and the most important is big love and understanding, love towards one or several cultures and understanding of it. I'm taking it just from my example. Yeah, since I lived long time in China, I felt really that this is sort of my little mission, apart from all my daily tasks at the company, that I just should explain other people what it actually means, and so that there are less and less stereotypes and prejudices against this culture. So it all came from within, just from really big interest towards this culture and big love towards this culture. And yeah, so judging by my own experience, I would say that this is important.
Marge, you told me before we started, your first childhood memory is the theater experience, and that you are not a musician yourself, but you are nourishing this competences in your kids. What are According to you, as a person related to the arts management, because you have a background in that, because you're teaching in it, but you're also a consumer, what are the issues and threats to diversity in the arts field from your experiences? And how, the second question would be how to address them, how to talk. We talk a little bit how to talk about it in my organization when I work, but if we talk about consuming arts and arts production, how do we address the very often underlying issues that are there and there are threats to diversity?
I guess now I present really Estonian approach, right? And I kind of have this feeling that to some limits, we are against diversity because we somewhere here, definitely not here, but somewhere here, tend to believe that.
Let me just say that Marge is pointing heart and head for people, for everyone who cannot see that. I can see that Marge is pointing a head and heart.
So basically, I guess we somehow try to convince us that Estonian culture needs terribly the protection, and it couldn't survive without the protection. And when we don't protect it, we kind of lose it, what we have, and therefore, kind of this kind of integration and mix is not always seen as fully positive. But this is on a kind of mainstream level. But when we think about, for instance, why the film festival, Black Nights Film Festival, is so popular, there are many reasons, no doubt in that. And why the music festivals, Italian Music Week, why they are so popular. They bring this diversity into our homes. We can very clearly sense it, feel it, and be part of this. So actually, we are afraid, we kind of feel that we need to protect what is ours. On the other hand, we really tend to enjoy this interaction. So it's kind of a paranoid situation. And I guess Anna is smiling. Anna has experienced this like last 10, 15 years, no, like more than 10 years. So you can most probably also comment on that. But this is what I kind of feel myself. And that was I spent half a year in Australia 2 years ago. And I remember how I was first introduced to many people. And the first thing I said was that, I'm Marge, I come from Estonia. And there's no reaction ever followed to the fact that I come to Estonia. I started to think that, what if this is actually not the key issue? But it took me most probably 10 meetings, 10 times being introduced, start thinking that, okay, what if my identity is actually something else? What if this, what seems to be so important to me, doesn't matter to the others? They don't charge me of being Estonian or not Estonian. There's so many other colors, so many other characteristics. Okay, but now I guess I'm too far from the original question.
Marge, but the point, I mean, that's a good point. And I think there's a certain heaviness and fetishization or idea of what is culture. Like we always have a tendency to, we need to classify whatever I do, it's because that's this culture, right? Like, and that's what you're saying. Like, it's never a big deal where you come from because everyone comes from somewhere. Especially Australia, countries like that, like United States. Everyone is from somewhere and they don't really care, you know, as long as you're opening your mouth and communicating, it doesn't really matter where you're coming from. So I think there's always this kind of heaviness of the term culture, which cannot be really grasped properly. There's, I guess, as many people, that many explanation for that would be. So I just think into that we have this idea that we need to belong somewhere, and for some reason we chose that that's going to be a culture that I belong to. Whereas, for example, if you try to actually define what's Estonian culture and you try to characterize, then you can actually characterize so many other people from abroad with the same sentences, right? So I think this kind of finding a balance, like let's a little bit step back from this culturalization of everything and try to see us as we are, because we are people and every person is different, right? And I think this, treating people individual as they are, not as a collective, is very important. And I think that's something that that we would like also in our program to feed into this discussion. Like everyone's individual and everyone has this unique traits that should be nourished in order for people to become better selves. So we also feeding the environment that we're living in. Dasha, your experiences. You came here from abroad, also after experiencing living in diverse environment, right? In China, also generic, but also homogenic and but also diverse. So what are your experiences? You're landing in Estonia, and what's happening? How do you feel here? Tell me the story. When did you come here?
Actually, it's a very simple story. I just met someone from Estonia in China, and I had to move here. And to China, I moved from Belarus when I was just 19 years old, because I did my bachelor's degree there in China. And then, in the city where I lived, there was just one Estonian. And it was me who met this guy. So I came here to Estonia, and now I'm a wife and a mother here. So when talking about if to put it all into cultural context, and I guess you wanted to ask about the differences between the cultures. Do I understand correctly, or
I would like to know the experience. I just wanted to point out that it's interesting. It's the time when it actually was worth to know that someone is from Estonia, like putting it against what Marge said, it's not a big deal. Well, that was a big deal, right? In China. No, what I'm asking for is your experiences, in the context that we are talking about. Not necessarily differences, because I'm sure there's lots of similarities. There are some differences, but how do you experience? How do you experience the transition, and finding exactly the same, the idea of belonging? How do I belong here if I don't belong here?
That's a good question. Okay, I will still start with some differences, and then I'll move to similarities. When I introduce myself to students who see me first time, I will show them 3 different pictures. People queuing outside of something, and the first queue, I will try to describe it with words right now. The first queue is just a really perfect row of people standing pretty close to each other, queuing for something. The second one is just a huge crowd trying to get into one small door, or one small gate, and complete chaos. And then the third one is a bus station, and then there are people standing 2 meters away from each other waiting for the bus, And you can probably guess which cultures, what cultures do these 3 pictures represent. So the first one would be Belarus, the second China, and the third one Estonia, or actually that picture is taken from Finland, but I find there are similarities. So these 3 countries that I live the most, they are indeed, the cultures are very different, because Belarus is collectivistic society, but at the same time with the Soviet background, but still it has a little bit of, there is some traces of individualism in that culture. China being completely collectivistic society, there is no personal space, no whatsoever, just everything is blended in. And then you're just individual in this sense doesn't matter that much in that culture. And then we take Estonia, that is a pretty individualistic society, and where personal space means a lot. So I would say that the cultures are very different, but the beauty of person's mind, is just that we are actually able to adapt to everything. Adapting, once you cultivate this awareness in yourself, cultural awareness, you're able to adapt to every environment and act by the rules of the culture that you are living in. In the end of the day, the core values are the same in all cultures. Yeah, everyone thinks, every single person on earth, actually deep inside cares about same thing. Yeah, probably their family, their loved ones, themselves, love, money, whatever. Yeah, so this main desires, values, everything what's deep inside us, it's all same. It doesn't matter in which cultures, we're talking. So in this sense, I say that from my experience living in different cultures, it's just how everything is sort of, there are some rules that you have to obey basically in order to fit into society. Once you understand them, it's not that difficult anymore. You just find like-minded people, and then you keep on living your life. But it's never easy in the beginning. I didn't manage to become insider in China, even within 4 years. It's way too short time, and probably no foreigner can ever blend into that society. In Estonia, of course, it is a little bit more easy for me, but in the beginning, I still felt pretty lonely and some difficulties. But once you learn the language, which is extremely important for every culture, and especially for rather small cultures such as Estonia, because this is a matter of some sort of respect towards culture. So once you learn the language, once you are able to communicate with the locals on a maybe a bit easier level, you are halfway through, basically becoming one of them.
Anna, may I ask you something? You have asked us. I have a question for you as well, because most probably Dasha has at least one explanation. Anna, do you know where this comes, that most of the nations in Asia are considered representing collective cultures, and we North tend to be more individualistic? There are more explanations, but I know this one. What about you?
You're asking me why? Well, I only can express my opinion. I don't have any background knowledge about Asian cultures. Not really my.
I give you just hint. My kind of the explanation that I have heard is extremely practical.
Let's see. No, I'm just wondering. Now you gave me a hint that I'm trying to find an answer for, like a hint.
Okay. Okay. Let me then tell what I have heard, and Dasha most probably wants to add something.
Yeah.
What I have heard, that cultivating rice is so demanding that the whole village is needed to contribute. While to raise potatoes, you can easily manage with one family's effort. And you can actually live your life in your home house with the people that form your core family, and you don't need to meet other people, right? But in China, you will not survive when you work alone and exist alone. Just one possible explanation.
That's an interesting explanation, but we should remember that potatoes were brought to Europe only in 14th century. So there should be some explanation when it comes to cultivating wheat, and rye.
Let's look into the buckwheat.
Probably it is the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, these are great insights.
And by the way, I haven't heard about. Yeah, sorry.
Dasha, Dasha, talk. You haven't heard?
Yeah, I was just wanted to mention that I haven't heard about it, but that's a really interesting series. So I will definitely later go and Google it more.
Yeah, well, from my experiences as a mother, the only thing that I can agree is that it takes a village to raise a child. And your interpretation of a village is always changing in the context that you're living in. So I'm collecting my village in here in Estonia, although it's not my village, right? I'm also a foreigner. I came here 13 years ago, and until now I still feel like a foreigner, and I don't think it will ever change. But what I wanted to say, like, insights are great, and I think that gives us a lot of points for new discussions further. And because I'm looking at the time as well, so I wish that Dasha, that you have great experiences with our students in the near future. Actually, this semester already, the autumn semester, and with Marge we're also meeting in our program, and I hope that opens doors for important discussions, because there's so much more to that. There's lots of things we didn't touch upon, like the reasons for issues like that, and why are they happening, and what are the things happening that we don't see. So I hope for the second, sequel is coming in September as we returning after the break. And for now, if there's anything that you would like to add, and if not, I'm thanking you very much. And we had Dasha Karpilovich and Marge Sassi from EBS, and I hope you enjoyed. And we meet next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.